This week on the video version of the Business of Tech, revenue growth of 50% or more with customer experience, how many are truly all cloud now, the e-commerce and inflation mix plus small business sentiment, tech workers and pay, how out of control is it, attackability as a measure of vulnerability risk, and paying out ransomware when you didn't have to. All these and more, hit those like and subscribe buttons, because that's how we pay the bills, and here are this week's stories. Starting the week with customer experience. A survey from Salesforce resulted in several key data points. Quoting ZDNet to pull some highlights. Companies are leaving money on the table. By breaking silos between employee experience and customer experience, it can lead to a massive opportunity for revenue growth of up to 50% or more. Companies think they have to choose between prioritizing employee or customer experiences, and customer experience is winning. Approximately 9 in 10 C-suite members, at 88%, say employees are encouraged to focus on customers' needs above all else, even though the C-suite knows that a powerful customer experience starts with an employee-first approach. There is a disconnect between C-suite perception and employee experience. 71% of C-suite leaders report their employees are engaged with their work, when in reality, only 51% of employees say they are. 70% of leaders report their employees are happy, while only 44% of employees report that they are happy. The disconnect is undermining EX, CX, and ultimately growth. 74% of C-suite executives say that no one at their company truly owns the employee experience, and only 1 in 3 companies excel at creating a seamless EX-CX experience. Outdated technology and siloed data strategies deepen that misalignment between employees and the C-suite. 52% of C-suite members believe their corporate technology is working effectively, compared to just 32% of employees. The majority of C-suite leaders, at 73%, say they do not know how to use their company's employee data to drive change. I wanted to pair this with a piece in NextGov, which focused on the December 2021 executive order around customer experience. Rather than make customers understand the bureaucracy, the White House's vision focuses on life experiences for those seeking assistance. Quote, for Americans facing retirement, surviving a disaster, transitioning out of the military, having children, or experiencing financial shock, the Biden administration wants to offer a path to services that doesn't require knowledge of how the government is organized. End quote. It even comes with a goal for Americans seeking services to be able to apply in 20 minutes, enroll within 24 hours, and get services in a week. Why do we care? This remains where the value is, and the U.S. government sees it too. Anything with 50% or more revenue growth gets my attention and should get yours. The survey is the guidance too, not having ownership of CX or management disconnected from employee reality. These are both actionable areas internally and services when considered externally. And consider that the very understandable goal from the U.S. government, which makes complicated ideas around service very tangible. Apply, enroll, and get services. With metrics. Some data from Foundry in a new survey. Only 7% of enterprises are truly all cloud. This number is likely to more than double over the next 2 years, but still represents the minority of enterprises. Half of the executives surveyed said their organization's total IT environment is, quote, some on the cloud but mostly on-premises, while over a third, 34%, is mostly cloud but some on-premises, and only 7% is all cloud. The all-cloud number is expected to increase by some 250% over the next 18 months to 17% who plan to shift everything they have to the cloud. As for the future, 72% of IT leaders say their organization is defaulting to cloud-based services when upgrading or purchasing new technical capabilities. About half, 46% of respondents, predict their organization's total IT environment will be mostly cloud but some on-premises by then, up from 34%. Why do we care? I've received criticism from listeners about being too all-in on the cloud. I'll own my bias, which is to focus on the direction I think things are moving, even if it means being further ahead than the reality of the ground. First, I think that places one in the competitive advantage spot where I want to be. Second, it prepares for the future reality by pulling it forward rather than waiting to be in the average. And a short item to note, ASML's CEO pointed out in an earnings call recently that the chip shortage is so dire that large industrial companies are buying washing machines to rip out chips and repurpose them. It's not just an anecdote. He observed it's happening everywhere and that the Internet of Things is driving demand for older chips. Why do we care? The creativity. Organizations crunched the numbers and focused on where they could maximize the value of those chips, and it wasn't even in the completed products. It's that somewhat out-of-the-box thinking I wanted to highlight, because the other reason to care is that this tells us the chip shortage will continue for a while. No one wants to rip apart completed products if they can be sold soon. I spotted this article about the link between e-commerce and inflation in Axios. Prices are no longer static. The idea of previous menu costs has been disrupted. Previously, if a restaurant needed to raise its prices, previously required reprinting all of the menus. Now, if the menu is a QR code, it's all about changing a web page. Some physical stores are following suit too, with e-ink displays or a restaurant changing prices depending on where and how it was ordered. However, as we pay less attention, we become less price sensitive, giving companies more scope to raise prices. Prices have become much more dynamic. Why do we care? There's some real pricing lessons here for smaller providers. It's my observation that many struggle to change their prices even yearly. Sure, I'll observe that this article is consumer-focused and I'm considering business engagements. Still, there's nothing wrong with being more dynamic with pricing for many smaller companies, especially dealing with micro-businesses. There's a difference between changing the price during a contract term and changing the price at the first sale. Why not make your initial price more flexible, allowing you to be much more nimble? So Lenovo was surveying CIOs. 3 in 5 would replace half or more of their current technology if they were given a chance. 9 in 10 CIOs say that their role and responsibilities have expanded beyond technology, including non-traditional areas such as data analytics and business reporting, 56%, sustainability and ESG at 45%, DE&I at 42%, HR and talent acquisition, 39%, and sales and marketing, 32%. Businesses would feel an impact in no more than a few weeks if they halted spending on digital transformation initiatives, according to 61% of respondents. 8 in 10 CIOs agree their tech vendors are so effectively integrated that it increases their overall productivity. Why do we care? I love CIO surveys because if you're in the virtual CIO business, these are your peers, or the thinker you have to emulate. How about those non-traditional areas VCIOs? Are you doing data analytics, DE&I, HR, or sales and marketing? Particularly for those in mid-market, these are the areas of responsibility you are either competing with or should consider how to be more valuable to. Deloitte Global with some diversity data, predicting that there will be nearly 33% more overall female representation in large global firms on average in 2022, up slightly more than 2 percentage points from 2019. According to Deloitte's estimates, women's share in the overall global tech workforce has increased by 6.9% from 2019 to 2022, while their share in the technology roles has grown by 11.7%. Notably, the firm said that the fastest growth, an estimated gain of nearly 20%, has occurred in the proportion of women in leadership. Why do we care? Interestingly, this podcast data on 300 companies we track shows about a percentage point since 2020, so not far off. The trend seems similar at least. It's worth observing the population is over 50% female, and that college and university attendance is also well over 50% now as well. We should be seeing this grow faster, to be honest. 2 articles crossed my desk about pay in the tech industry. First is the Wall Street Journal. Quote, "Wage inflation in the technology sector is accelerating, pressuring companies to boost compensation for key roles by 20% or more as they compete for a limited pool of workers skilled in areas such as cloud computing and data science." There is no single source of data on all tech jobs, but it is clear from a range of market analysts and executives that demand for labor in the tech sector is on the rise. During the first quarter, U.S. employers posted 1.1 million tech jobs, an increase of 43% from a year earlier, according to information technology trade group CompTIA. The tech roles in greatest demand include cloud computing architects, data scientists and modelers, and machine learning experts. Staffing firm Mondo, an Addison Group company, said that at the high end of the compensation range, cloud architects saw average salary increases of 25% between 2020 and this year, while average salaries for software engineers rose 11% over the same period. The article continues with stories of wage increases across the board, from venture capital Murray Hill reporting increases topping 20 or 30%, to the CEO of Ignite, noting average wage increases of 50%, and some workers doubling their pay in the past year in their European operations in Poland. Insider had their version of the story too, and cited, quote, "an internal Google survey recently obtained by Insider showing that a rising number of employees said that their total compensation wasn't competitive compared with similar jobs at other companies. While 63% of Googlers said their compensation was competitive in last year's survey, only 53% said the same in 2022. The article then looked at Glassdoor and Levels.fyi postings showing pay discrepancies, highlighting the difference between market pay, which is the competitive salaries used to attract hires, and current pay, which is what a company pays existing employees. Quote, "The tech recruiting firm Dice reported that tech salaries increased over 6% in the past year to a record average of $104,056. In June 2020, wages rose a whopping average of 9.8% for job switchers in the IT industry, from payroll firm ADP, telling the Wall Street Journal." Why do we care? Labor remains the number one cost line for IT services. You can't deliver services without people, regardless of how much automation you put in place. I won't gloss over the automation solution. That certainly should be part of the equation. What's notable is that those who lean into automation then are required to have those significantly more expensive humans running the systems. The paradox of removing humans from the system by automation also makes an organization incredibly reliant on the humans it has due to their high skill levels. And if the answer is the owner does it, you're really in trouble. I'm highlighting this risk area for owners and managers due to the speed of the changes. These are massive jumps in 1 year, and likely well out of range of annual budget planning. It's just Q2, and those budgets may be incorrect already. Did you know Cisco helps managed services providers directly? Know about the Cisco Partner Program? Focused on helping partners combine managed services expertise and service creation with innovative Cisco technology and proven go-to-market resources. There's a program option for you. With provider pricing, MDF, and marketing resources, coupled with Cisco's leading technologies including Meraki, Duo, and Umbrella, learn more with the link right in the show notes. Some research by Randori. The team examined attackability in the enterprise through the lens of log4j exposure, quoting dark reading. Adversaries consider several factors when picking their targets, such as where the most initial damage would likely occur and what kind of impact the intrusion would have on the environment. Adversaries are more than likely to target applications that would allow them to remain in the environment, so they would be less interested in systems that have a lot of security software that would detect the intrusion. Applications that grant access to other systems or give adversaries privileged access would be a more tempting target. VMware Horizon is considered the most attackable because, if compromised, it gives adversaries access to the rest of the network. Mobile device management platform Jamf and single sign-on platform Ping Federate are used by 1 to 2% of the enterprise market, but are ranked second and third on the attackable list because of what adversaries would be able to do. And two attackers are back. Emotet's botnet has reemerged, focused on phishing emails and mass spam campaigns, and R-Evil's Tor servers are back up, recruiting new affiliates. The continuing trend of government investment in mitigation, the U.S. Department of Energy is providing $12 million in funding to 6 university teams to develop defense and mitigation tools for the U.S. energy systems to defend against cyber attacks. And finally, a fascinating profile of Bob Lord by NextGov, who is a new senior advisor at CISA after stints at Yahoo, Twitter, and the DNC. Here's what got my attention. He's, quote, something of a digital Marie Kondo, the Japanese tidying expert, decluttering the DNC's network, exercising old software, and canceling extraneous vendor contracts. Why do we care? That comparison to Marie Kondo particularly struck me. Is a minimalist approach optimal? How much so? How many services firms take this approach, that less is more? The other highlight for me today was attackability. Consider many of the multi-tenant tools used by IT services companies now. Just like Jamf and Ping Federate, they are highly attackable and remain tempting targets. Now combine the two. Is less more? Can you serve your customers better with a lot fewer tools? And to really bend your mind today, consider the previous story. Could you do that with more humans to ease your dependency on expensive ones? Feels like a lot of assumptions worth questioning today. How about some analysis of meeting effectiveness? Startup Reed released a study after measuring more than 3 million virtual meeting minutes, and here's what they found. For meetings with 7 or more people, 50% of participants arrive late, 40% have below average or poor engagement, 22% of participants don't say a single word, and 11% don't have video or audio on. Overall, 31% of meetings start late, and 64% of all meeting participants have at least one participant that arrives late. The company noted that with workers going remote amid the pandemic, people erred on the side of inviting more participants, and the default response of those invited was to accept. This is what introduced Zoom fatigue. Another study out of Columbia University finds that video calls do reduce the production of creative ideas. Face-to-face pairs produced more ideas and more creative ideas compared to those who met virtually. However, when selecting which idea to put forward, both groups were equally effective. The study pointed out that by using eye-tracking data, the authors found that virtual partners spent more time looking directly at each other as opposed to gazing around the room. According to the authors, the findings suggest that visual focus narrows when people use a computer, limiting their cognitive focus. Why do we care? That phrase, right tool for the right job, sticks in my mind here. Is a meeting the best way to address the need? Is a physical space the only solution? The answer, of course, is no. Overuse or misuse of technology results in suboptimal outcomes. It's worth saying. There's a fundamental skill in being an excellent remote company, remote manager, and remote employee. And there's an opportunity to sell that education. Another set of changes to Microsoft's new Commerce Experience rollout. The date when legacy subscriptions for Microsoft 365 and other packages have to be bought through NCE has been pushed back 11 days from July 1 to July 11. The company also indefinitely delayed the final phase of its plan for moving Azure purchases to NCE. Microsoft announced that more testing validation is needed before the final phase of moving partners and customers to a new commerce experience for Azure offers. Now, why do we care? This isn't going as smoothly as Microsoft might have hoped. Can someone tell me why 11 days makes a difference? Can't figure it out. And I wonder if that's something to understand further. I try and focus on the why, and here's an area where I haven't been able to figure it out. And I feel like that's the essential part of the story. Apple's self-repair kits are now commercially available. Starting Wednesday, anyone can buy a host of genuine Apple parts and tools from the self-service repair store website. Quoting Vice. Most interestingly and most excitingly, we're finally getting an official look at the repair tools and repair guides that Apple's own stores and technicians use. Even these tools aren't outrageously priced. A heated display remove fixture, which is used to take off the screen, costs $256.35, which is a lot of money for a single repair, but perhaps more reasonable if you're a small business doing screen replacements every day. Apple is also letting customers rent a giant toolkit for $50, which is a fun idea and is similar to what places like AutoZone does for car repairs. Why do we care? This is an advancement for the sentiment of the right to repair, and should not be confused with the actual right to repair, which would be legal protections. I'm glad to see this, and I don't expect this to be the end of the movement. It is certainly a trend. The State Department announced Tuesday that they're offering a reward of up to $10 million for information leading to 6 Russian intelligence hackers responsible for the infamous 2017 NotPetya malware. This malware knocked out Chernobyl's radiation monitoring system and did more than $1 billion in damage to several U.S. organizations. The reward is part of the State Department's Reward for Justice program and extends beyond just the 6 Russian intelligence hackers responsible for NotPetya to any person who, while acting at the direction or under the control of a foreign government, participates in malicious cyber activities against U.S. critical infrastructure. The Rewards for Justice program has paid more than $200 million to more than 100 tipsters across the globe since it launched in 1984. This is from Cyberscoop. Why do we care? I wasn't aware of this program, and let's observe that the State Department also just opened their new Bureau for Cyber. Tips at this level are valuable, and it's encouraging to see a landscape of investment in gathering intelligence. For those unfamiliar, dig into your bug bounty programs of your vendors to understand their security incentives. I mentioned pricing earlier this week. Nearly 70% of small businesses plan to raise their average selling prices in the next 3 months, a study from the National Federation of Independent Businesses found. Quoting Channel EDE, the majority of small businesses, at 62%, said inflation was having a substantial impact on their business, while about a third, at 31%, reported it had moderate impact. Only 6% of owners reported having mild impact, according to the survey. When it comes to specific costs, over 3/4, at 77%, of small employers reported that inventory, supplies, and materials were a substantial contributor to higher costs, while 18% reported the impact was moderate. Over 3/4, at 77%, of small employers reported that rising prices for fuel, gasoline, diesel, fuel oil, etc., is a substantial contributor to higher costs. Labor, rent, and utilities contribute to cost pressures for many small employers, according to the report, but to a lesser degree than supplies and inventory and fuel. Why do we care? Even if this isn't your IT services business, it's your customer's reality. Too often we hear about how much opportunity there is, blindly ignoring the customer realities. The two statements can be true at the same time. There is a lot of opportunity out there, and there are a lot of pressures on customers. Those who get the balance right and understand both will be the real winners. And one way to do that is to address any concerns you have with customers directly. The State of Ransomware report from Sophos. Just over a quarter of ransomware victims paid off their attackers, even though they have other means of data recovery, such as restoration from backups. Sophos found the average payout grew by nearly 5 times at $812,000, and the proportion of organizations paying over $1 million to get their data back increased from 4% in 2020 to 11% in 2021. Sophos said 46% of victims paid some ransom, but 26% of those had the means to restore encrypted data on their own. 83% of mid-size organizations have a cyber insurance policy that contained ransomware cover. Insurance was found to have covered some or all of the costs incurred in 98% of documented incidents. That said, 94% of those that held cyber insurance policies said they were now faced with more demanding clauses for security measures, more complex and expensive policies, and less choice of providers. Why do we care? The cyber insurance market is getting harder. It's not just stories. I'm particularly irked by companies paying the ransom who didn't have to. It's a hard enough decision to pay when it's your only option, much less when you don't have to. There's a certain degree of pay it forward here. If you pay the ransom, you're enabling them to hit the next victim. This is where I encourage IT providers to draw the line. If your customers are paying, you're making your own job harder, as those attackers will be back. Take a moment and think about that.
Thanks for your time and attention. Time is a finite resource, and I really value you giving me some of yours. If you like this video, you can let me know with a like of the video, and even more valuable, hitting the subscription button. My content is all free, and I use metrics like subscriptions to pay the bills, so it has real value. The content here is produced under ethics guidelines posted at businessof.tech. If you're interested in more content like this, you can get access to content early via our Patreon at patreon.com/MSPradio. It's our give what you want model where you set the value of what you think the content is worth. If you like this podcast, you can catch it daily as the 5-minute news and commentary show, The Business of Tech, available on all your favorite podcatchers with links at businessof.tech. Just hit that big blue button to subscribe. Again, thank you for taking time out of your day to listen, and I really value the interaction. If you want to say something in the comments, I do respond and watch all that, and I look forward to talking to you next time.